Up to this point, we talked about the basic layout of the screen. We've talked about the drawing tools. Today, I want to show you what I think is probably the most powerful and neatest feature of Inkscape, and that's going to be our paths menu up here at the top. And specifically, I want to look at union, difference, intersection, and exclusion in the path menu, object to path, and we'll probably look at linked offset at the end. To do this, I need some shapes. So I just got my rectangle tool, drug out a rectangle. I got my ellipse tool over here and drug out, I drug out a circle. These could be ellipses, could be whatever you want them to be. I also changed the colors. This one's red, this one's blue, so we can see better. And I set the opacities for both of them to right around 50%. It's 51.4. And that way I can overlap them and you can actually see the part where they overlap them. That's going to be important for demonstration, but totally not necessary if you were just doing this, making something. So let me first say that if you are like me and you're like, man, I can't draw, please don't ask me to draw something. You give me a pencil and a paper and I'm going to draw a stick figure. The great thing about Inkscape and the tools I'm going to show you today is that you can make some beautiful, professional looking logos, designs, drawings, whatever, and not have to have a single ounce of actual drawing ability. Now, if you do have drawing ability, you're ahead of all of us and can do great things, I'm sure. But for right now, let's pretend like none of us can draw, and we're going to use Inkscape to create all kinds of shapes and designs, and we're going to do that without much ability. The first thing I need you to know is that I just drew let's look at the rectangle. I just drew a rectangle. I can modify this rectangle and change this rectangle into pretty much any shape I want to by using this little pen right here, which is the Edit Paths by Nodes. I can grab corners and stretch them. I can grab middle of lines and I can curve them. Once you curved a line, these little handles pop up and you can grab them and adjust each side individually. Get back here. And I can do this with any part of it, and I can make whatever wild and crazy shapes I want to if I can click on them. And so we can modify shapes, except not really. You can't modify shapes. Oops, I did not mean to do that. You can modify shapes as long as they're not objects. Let me say that. What I did is I cheated, and the reason these are already on the screen is because I drew this rectangle and I turned it into a path. Because you notice this tool is titled Edit Paths by Nodes. So I want to do the same thing to the circle. I want to go over and modify the circle. So I'm going to click on the circle. I'm going to click this tool, and it's got some dots, but they're not the nodes. These are the like scaling dots. I want nodes, and there aren't any. Well, there aren't any because this is not a path. This is an object. So an object is an object. It's a thing. A path is a drawing. It's a line. And this is not. When I drew this rectangle, it was also not a path. It was an object. So we can fix this. I've got my circle selected. I can go to Path, Object to Path, and it turns it into a path. And you notice I now have my nodes that I can now modify individually. So we can make like a smiley face or an egg or whatever, super easy and super quick. Again, I can drag the handles if I want to offset it or adjust it, whatever. Let me undo this and get it back to the circle. Now, the only reason I did that was so that I could show you this Edit Paths by Nodes tool. You don't need these to be paths for this path menu stuff to work. The one thing they do need to be is not grouped together. So it is possible. I selected both of them. This little tool here is the grouping tool. So a lot of times we'll group things together, especially if I need to move this. If this was some kind of graphic or design and I'm moving this around the screen and I want these two to stay that distance apart and I want them to stay lined up, then I group them together. If they're grouped, the path, union, difference, intersection, and exclusion don't really work. So what I'm going to do is click ungroup and make sure they're two separate things. Sometimes you're going to make something, you're going to group them together, and you're going to forget they're grouped together, and you're going to go to path and try to do a union or something that I'll show you in a second, and it's not going to work. So if ever you try one of these things and it just doesn't work at all, then go up and click on ungroup just to make sure nothing is grouped together. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I want to move it over here into the center. So I'm going to highlight both of them or select both of them. I clicked on the blue one, held shift, clicked on the red one. And I'm going to go to my align menu, make sure it says last selected and then relative to, and I'm going to align the centers this way. And then I want to align the centers that way. Okay, so what I basically did is just put this blue dot in the middle of this red rectangle. And actually, I want to drag this over. I'm holding control, and I'm pretty much center it there. I'm holding control so it doesn't move up or down. If you hold control and drag, it kind of locks it to an axis. Okay, so I want you to look at the shape we have here because this is going to be important for the different tools. We have a red rectangle, a green circle, that's blue, a blue circle, and we have this like purpley overlap area. You have to select both of them. So I have both selected. I'm going to go to path and I'm going to choose union. When I did that, it glued both of them together. So it basically stuck them together and I now have a new shape. Now, granted, this would be an easy shape to make otherwise, but I'm just showing you that you can always take two any shapes, and you can use this union function to glue them together and make them one shape now instead of two. I'm going to undo that. Hold shift, I'm going to select both of them again. I'm going to go to path and choose difference. All right, now when I choose difference, notice it cut out the overlapped part. So wherever I had an overlap, cut a chunk out. I'm going to take this and move it to the middle. They're both selected. I'm going to go to path, difference, and it cut that chunk out. Notice which one it cut though. The red one is staying, the blue one is used as your like cutting tool, and then it's gone. This is solely based on the order the objects are on the screen. Right now, the red one is below the blue one. If the red one is below the blue one, then the blue one is the tool, and the red one is going to stay, and the blue one will cut and then go away. Let me move this back. If I shift the order, so I'm going to take this blue circle, and I'm going to click this little tool right here, which says lower it to the bottom. Okay, so now the red is on top of the blue. I'm going to select both of them again. I'm going to go to path and difference. And now the red is the cutting tool and the blue is the object, so the red cuts it and goes away. Notice that I've now made this little half circle. So I can make pretty much any shape that I want to, as long as it's a circle-ish or rectangular, square-ish, which is actually a lot more things than you would think. I'm going to select both of them again. Go to path, and this time we're going to do intersection. All right, when I do intersection, it just keeps that overlapped part. So if I undo this, this little chunk right here that we have left is the purple. Move this back up to the top so it looks more purple. So that's my purple overlap section. So when I choose these two, go to path, and go to intersection, it's just going to keep the spot where the two of them overlapped. All right. And we got one more we're going to look at, which is exclusion. This is going to do the opposite. So if I click exclusion, it throws away the overlapped part and it keeps the parts that were not overlapped. You're going to be amazed. You'll see as we go through in drawing how we can combine shapes, and you can do difference and union and make all kinds of neat little designs. Let me turn this thing here blue, crank the opacity back all the way up to 100%. I mean, just look at what we've got right there. I've already got, that's a kind of a neat shape. That would be a neat design. I don't like it being on its side. Let me rotate it here. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. And then I'm going to zoom out. Kind of looks like a South Park character, doesn't it? But you could make all kinds of graphics and designs, color combinations, whatever, and do it really neatly just by using this simple path menu. I did want to show you also, let me just make let's make a rectangle. I'm going to make a rectangle. And I'm going to go to path, and I'm going to choose linked offset. When I do, there's now one little node, and I've got this one little tool. I'm going to grab it and drag. And you say, well, it didn't do anything. Yeah, it did. What it did is it made a copy of my blue rectangle, and it let me scale that copy. Now, it's hard to see because they're the same color. Let's make this pink. So what it did was made a copy and let me scale it outwards. So try that again. We'll do this, and I'm going to lower the opacity down so you can see through it. Let's just make it a red color. All right, I got my path selected. I'm going to go to path, linked offset, and we can drag out this shape. And so I can make borders or whatever we need to. Let me drag this back in, strokes, things like that. And I can actually, I want that back to be whatever size I want to. Good job. Okay. So that's just a neat little tool that I will throw in there as well. I know it doesn't seem like it. It didn't to me, at least at first. Well, what can I really do with some circles or ellipses and some rectangles? But remember, you can also create stars in different polygons, and you can use the edit paths by node. So I could have taken that rectangle, made it some sort of weird shape, and then cut it out from the circle or combined it with an ellipse or another rectangle. And you can make some really neat drawings. And notice that like all my lines are smooth. Everything looks great. It just makes you such a better artist, if you will. So if you would, think about what you can do with this, and then I want you to try it. Make you some shapes, try the different little path, try union, try difference, go through, play with those, and just kind of get familiar with that, and make sure you understand how those work, because we're going to use those a lot as the year goes on.